Hey, what's up, YouTube? Red and Bordy here. Today, we are going to show you maybe the first ever footage of capturing forts in New World. Me and Taken snuck around after the event, and we went and capped a fort from that dirty, nasty marauder. That faction, dude. They don't deserve any land in Aeternum, if it's my opinion. Syndicate for life. And so we took back the fort, and we want to talk about it here on a video, because I think it's something that we wanted to break down in the video, and I just got the opportunity to capture a fort IRL. So let's talk about it today, Bordy. But first, guys, don't forget to hit the subscription button, the notification bell. We're at 750 as of right now, dude. It's crazy. The growth on this channel has far exceeded anything that we expected. So we thank you guys so much for your continued support and subs. To our patrons, we actually have patrons now, which is insane to think about. Bordy's got a StudioLoot merch on. Oh yeah, look at that. And we're just extremely appreciative of you guys and all the support you give us. So thank you for that from the bottom of our hearts. Bordy, anything else to say before we dive in here?
No, man, you covered it, dude. Just a big thank you to everyone. It's been amazing.
All right, so here's how you capture a fort in the open world and New World. So basically, you have to flag up for PvP. You will have to go to your faction vendor, you can just go to a safe place, a settlement, and flag up. But you do have to be in a settlement to flag. You can't flag in the open world. Once you do that, you can run to a fort, and there is a capture point in the middle of it. So there'll be a circle, just like you're used to in most games with capture points or control points. You will stand in that for an extended period of time, and then once you do, you will take it over, Bordy. Knowing this is pretty easy, pretty simple mechanic. Do you see this capture points, or these, this fort control being a big thing once New World launches?
Yeah, I do, man. And this is something we've talked about in other videos, but now that you've actually had a chance to experience it, I know that you didn't actually PvP for those points because there was a limited amount of people there in that creator event. But I do think it's going to be a big deal in the open world for sure. There's a lot of people that want to open world PvP, myself included. There are a few issues that we've talked about before, like zerging. I think it'd potentially be a problem, but it's really cool to see that you guys actually got to go kind of experience it firsthand and see what it would look like if you were in there fighting. And I think there could be some really cool battles in there, man. Those forts are laid out pretty cool, in my opinion. They're kind of small, but they're, you can kind of get up on the ramparts and do some cool things, I think, in open world PvP that you can't really do in the siege setting whenever you're trying to breach through the gates. The gates are already open, and you just go in there and go to town. And I think it's going to be fun. It looks like a fun setting to have some PvP action in.
Yes, it was a pretty closed event. There wasn't a lot of PvP or anything going around. I think at this point, a lot of people had already logged out and went off to edit their YouTube videos. So we were just sneaking around and trying out some stuff. We claimed Windsward for StudioLoot. So, hopefully that's a future premonition. Maybe we'll be the owners of Windsward on the live servers as well. But maybe. Bordy, so one of the other things that we want to mention real quick to control a capture point or a fort is if you win the siege. So if you win the siege, there'll be an hour window after you win the siege where you will control both the settlement and the fort. So you'll automatically get it once, especially if you take ownership of the siege from a controlling faction. Now, Bordy, people are probably asking, well, why are we interested in this? Why do we care about fort capture as a gatherer, as a crafter, just as a New World player in general? And so we're going to go through the benefits or rewards with each territory and their fort. That's right. There is different unique global buffs with each fort in New World. So I would assume, Bordy, as they add more and more forts into the game, settlements and territories into the game, that there'll be more and more world buffs that you can obtain.
Yeah, I would think so, without a doubt. We have looked at this briefly in another video as well, but I don't think we've ever gone through each benefit like this. We have looked at a couple of them before, but never this in depth. So yeah, let's take a look at them, man.
All right, so we will go through these one by one, and if you are unfamiliar where these territories are located, You can go over to New World Fans. We have a map up right now. It's not complete with the new territories. We can't do that until the NDA drops, unfortunately. But once it does drop, and that is, of course, July 20th, we will have the map completely rehauled with all of the new territories that they've added to the game. But here are the ones that are already present. So Monarch's Buff, Monarch's Bluff's buff, okay, that's a little bit of a tongue twister, reduces fast travel distance costs from 5 Azoth per 100 meters down to 1 Azoth per 100 meters. So basically reducing the cost by 5 times, Bordy. That's a pretty significant reduction.
Yeah, it is. I think that's a pretty nice buff for sure. I don't know whenever the game releases how hard it's going to be to get Azoth or how important it's going to have that to travel around. I guess we'll see. But on paper, that seems like a pretty good buff, man.
Yes. And you know, fast travel is something that, you know, they haven't entirely fleshed out yet. I do believe that they teased on Twitter or something that fast travel is something they're going to talk more about in the May update. So we'll kind of stay tuned for that. We expect to get that soon. But yeah, you know, traveling back and forth, we don't really know exactly how important it is at this time. Obviously, the preview event, a lot has changed since then. But this is a really significant reduction in cost. So if Azoth is hard to come by, this will be definitely well sought after. So the next one we have is Windsward, the territory we're in right now in this video. Increases volume of items gained when gathering by 5% for controlling faction. Now, this is pretty insane for gatherers, Bordy, because right now, if you chop down a tree or mine something, you're not just getting one piece of ore every time you do that. You're getting like 40, 50. So 5% on, 40 or 50 per like node, that starts to add up really quickly.
Yeah, it can definitely add up and help the gatherers gather faster. So I would think that if you're a gatherer trying to gather specific items, you would want to own Windsward. You would want to own the Windsward Fort, give you a reason to go fight for it so that you could gain more material to craft more stuff for your faction, man.
Yeah, and it's going to be cool because a lot of these are tied into gathering or crafting, so it's going to be important for, them to kind of work together to help control these forts for their faction as well. So Everfall is the next one we're going to talk about here. Reduce trading taxes by 5% for controlling faction. So, again, trading, we don't know how important it is in the game yet with the new economy changes and everything. But if it is something that you're having to continue to create commerce and if there's some benefit financially to continue to, make deals or make trades on the trading post, this can be a very significant buff for those players.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brightwood is the next one we have here. Reduces house taxing by 5% for controlling faction. I don't know how significant that is, Bordy. Brightwood is a very popular territory, I think, in general, or it was in the preview event, as far as player interest and the amount of players. It is kind of nudged up against some of the in-game zones, such as the Great Cleave. A lot of experience gain or farming was being done in the Great Cleave, so Brightwood seems to have some value in and of itself, but here, if you're big on house taxing, or if your territory is big on house taxing, Brightwood might be something valuable to own.
I guess it just depends on how much the house tax is going to be. I know during the preview event, I owned a couple of houses, and the house tax was 100 gold, and it was like 100 gold every few days. It was not much. 100 gold in the game, or 100 coin. It's not called gold, it's called coin. Was not very much. And so 5% of 100 is not a lot. And it just, that seems very underwhelming. So I guess if housing tax is a whole lot, then maybe that'll help. But that seems like one of the least favorable buffs that you'll get from capturing the fort. So I don't know that a lot of people are really going to be too interested in fighting over the Brightwood fort unless they want to own the Brightwood territory, because then you obviously have a better chance to capture the territory whenever you're on the fort. But
that's right, and that is important to mention. I probably should have mentioned that up front, but also in controlling a fort within a territory allows you to get a significant buff to your influence gain while you're doing PvP and PvE quests. So it will be important to it's like 20%. So that's a really significant buff and something well worth the effort to collect a fort before you try to overtake a territory. So Cutlass Keys is the next one. Reduces base Azoth cost of fast travel by 50% for controlling factions. Now here's another reduction of Azoth cost in the fast travel realm.
Yeah, it's interesting because they are putting a lot of emphasis on this fast travel reduction of cost, but there is, so the base Azoth cost of fast travel by 50%, that is, I can't remember what the base cost was, man. I had that somewhere. Let me see if I can find it very, very quickly here. The base cost of fast travel, I believe, is 50 Azoth. Yeah, 50 Azoth. So it just reduces your cost by 25 Azoth, which isn't a ton.
Well, because
it's not a ton.
Yeah, no, because here's the thing, and I think there's another buff coming up that reduces one of these as well. Your fast travel cost is always based off of your weight, how much encumbrance you have, and the distance you're traveling. So, like Bordy said, the base cost is a set rate, and that's 50. So he's right. You'll basically by capturing Cutlass Keys for it, you'll basically get a 25% or 25 flat rate reduction in traveling.
So it seems like Monarch's Bluff would be better because it's based off of distance traveled versus just the base cost. The base cost seems a little bit less important than the distance traveled, in my opinion.
I would have to agree. And I'm sure they're going to tweak these, Bordy. I wouldn't think they'd be left exactly like this before launch. So Weaver Finn increases coin, experience, territory standing, and faction token rewards from faction missions by 5% for controlling faction. That is pretty significant, Bordy. That's across the board a very valuable buff.
Yeah, I think that's a very valuable buff. It gets gimped or nerfed quite a bit whenever you hit max level, because I think the 5% increase in experience is pretty good for that territory for sure. Whenever you couple that with some of the other, if you're in Weaver's Fin and you're just pumping in Weaver's Fin, running missions there all the time, you increase your reputation gain and you're increasing your experience gain in that zone. You can increase it quite a bit in that zone. You add another 5% on top of that by owning the fort. You could potentially level pretty quickly in that area up to a certain point, because now they've adjusted the way XP works too. Anything above or lower than 10 levels than you get much less XP for. So they did gimp that, but up to that point, you could level pretty fast if you have this. And then the increase in coin is nice. Territory standing is nice. Faction token. The 5% buff is a good one, man. I think that's probably one of the better ones we've seen on the list so far.
Yeah, and I think if you're wanting to level, I think a lot of people as they, get into the game and trying to optimally level, Weaver's Fin is going to be one of those things that a lot of the bigger guilds are going to focus on just to get that 5% buff of experience gain.
Yeah.
Restless Shore is the next one we have. Increased coin, experience, and faction tokens from corrupted breaches by 5% for controlling territory.
That's interesting because it doesn't mention Azoth, because we know that whenever you run corrupted breaches, you get a ton of Azoth, and that's one of the better ways to farm Azoth in the game. So you would think that you would get an increase in Azoth whenever they throw in the corrupted breaches as well. I think that'd make that a little bit more valuable. But overall, I guess that's okay too. You can just, if you're going to farm breaches, you go farm breaches there. Why not? Because then you'd get increased coin. Again, experience is good. So while you're trying to level, owning that would be very important, I would imagine, because corrupted breaches did give in the preview quite a bit of experience too. So not bad.
Yes. Moving on to the next buff, which is Morningdale increases coin and experience rewards from expeditions by 5% for controlling factions. I think this one's pretty interesting, Bordy, because we don't know exactly what the gain of coin and experience is for expeditions at this point.
Yeah, we don't. I think I seen somewhere with one of these interviews that was done from this content creator event, they were talking about expeditions and how much experience you get from those. They did say that they're wanting that to be a significant amount. I don't remember where I seen that or what interview that was on. I apologize, I can't quote it, or else I'd link it in the description. And I'll try to find it and try to make sure I link it if I can find it again. So that may be pretty important, but it also is interesting too, because this one isn't tied to Morningdale specifically. All the other ones seem to be tied specific to that faction, except for fast travel, I guess, some of the fast travel ones. But this one says that from expeditions. So I'd assume it's from all expeditions. So right now there's 4 in the game. If they add more, then I guess you get 5% from each expedition you run.
Yeah. So it's interesting because some of these, like you're saying, do specify within the territory, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them are world buff.
Yeah.
So we'll see, because I think it is important if you're, especially like as a big guild, you're going to want to like stack the ones that are valuable to what your guild's trying to do at that time. Maybe you're trying to pull into a lot of trading and making sure you corner the market on a lot of the outposts. And so you'll focus on reduction of trading costs and crafting, taxes and everything like that. And it'll be interesting to see how these play out, especially for like the bigger guilds on the server and how much they want buffs at certain times. I think there could be a lot of war surrounding these forts if these buffs get more significant. And I think, again, some of these are going to need to be tweaked, but if they can make all of these a significant buff for a certain part of the game, there could be a lot of conflict at these forts.
Yeah, I think so.
So the next one we have is Ebb and Scale. These are the new zones. Reduced refining tax by 5% for controlling territory. So there we go. Another crafting type of buff.
Yeah, so this one, we'll go into the last one as well. Reekwater reduces crafting tax by 5% for controlling factions. Sorry, I jumped ahead there, but I wanted to tie these into kind of an interesting point here that I just thought of. These may be a little bit counterintuitive, Red, because think about this situation, okay? Think if you own the fort, you also own the territory, and you are the company that controls this territory. Well, as the company, you also get reduction in taxes and some other benefits from owning the territory. Well, at the end of the day, you're going to be gimped if your faction owns the territory, your company owns the territory, and all your company members are there doing. That's where they're going to want to do their refining and their crafting at, because they're going to get a reduction in taxes. Well, then your company's not going to be making money off of the tax that you just placed on these things. So if you're controlling it and all these people are getting a reduction in it, unless you have an influx of people coming out, which I guess maybe that's where the offset would be, is all these other factions coming in there and still doing it. But it just seems like you're gimping yourself in that situation. Whenever you own everything at once, it seems like you're going to be gimping yourself, because all of your company members are going to be. I guess that's where the benefit comes in, though, right? Because your company members then would get to do it for free, but then your company's just getting kind of screwed out of money there.
Yeah,
overall.
from your company,
kind of
which
interesting.
Is okay, right. I guess. But
which is the point of it. I understand that's the point of it, because it is a perk. That's what's supposed to happen. It's just interesting to think about, because now you're not getting as much money into your company. But anyway, kind of a stupid point, I guess, but just something that crossed my mind.
Well, I mean, what's interesting to me is these are in-game zones. So, obviously these are going to be well sought after for control, because obviously a lot of your activity at in-game, you would think is going to be in at least some of these zones, Reekwater and Ebb and Scale, as far as, getting materials and gathering and crafting, because a lot of the commerce you would think that of in-game characters and gear and stuff are going to happen in these territories, because, where else are these players going to want to buy, your in-game armor and stuff, if not to participate in in-game zone activity. So we'll see, man. We'll see how this stacks up and how these fare. And I would assume we're going to see some changes as time goes on with these buffs. And I'm here for it, man. The more the merrier. Yeah. The more influential these buffs are to people's, daily gameplay, the more likely it is we're going to see a conflict and constant retaking of these things. And dude, these can flip. There's no cooldown outside of the siege. So, I mean, these could flip like minute to minute. So we'll see exactly what happens.
I'm glad you said that, because I was about to ask you that very question before we wrap this up. I was going to ask if you were able to take the fort during the creator event, if you were able to take the fort right after someone else took it, or if there was a cooldown. But you just answered that question. That's interesting.
Yeah, there's not one. Someone took it right before. Someone switched factions and took it right before us, and then we ran over there and took it right back. So there was no cooldown at all, and there was no cooldown listed in the patch notes either. So.
I don't know how I feel about that. That's going to be interesting.
It will be very interesting, because I think there's just going to be a bunch of shenanigans going on at some of these forts, which I'm here for, man.
All the time.
We'll see what if I want to go on open world PvP, just go hang out at fort. Hopefully that's one of the ones with the better buffs, and then you're going to get to do some open world PvP, which is exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below which one of these territory buffs do you think are significant that you want to try to capture for your company, and which ones do you think needs to be changed? We can have a nice discussion in the comments. I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion leading up to launch and after launch for a lot of these, because, dude, it's an interesting system, but I do think it's all about the benefits of these buffs, because otherwise there's really no reason to do it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next video.